Welcome to the iPad Mini 3 Take-Apart Guide. First, you'll need to use a heat gun around the edges of the glass to heat up the adhesive. This will make it easier to take the glass off. Start heating up the glass along the top edges. Then use a suction cup and a flat pry tool to separate the glass. Be careful not to dig in too deep with the pry tool, because you could easily scratch the LCD or even crack your glass. Once the top section is loosened, then heat up around the sides and gently pry the side portions of the glass away from the back case. Now that the top section and sides are loosened, you can then open the glass up like this. Be careful not to put too much tension on the flex cables at the bottom when opening the glass. Next, remove the Phillips screws from the LCD. There are two screws that have a foam piece covering them that will need to be removed before you can take the screws out. Before you can lift the LCD up, you will need to remove the tape from the top and bottom sections of the LCD. Use a sharp, small, flat tool to do this. Then use a small flat tool to lift the LCD up and slide the flat tool under each side of the LCD like this to separate it from the midboard. Now you can lift the LCD up and over. Again, be careful not to tear the flex cable when doing this. Next, you will need to take out the Phillips screws from the midboard. Once the screws are removed, you can then take the midboard out. Now remove the Phillips screws from the shield that is covering the digitizer and LCD flex cables. And then, using your nylon spudger tool, unplug all of the flex cables that were located under this shield. After doing this, you can then move your digitizer and LCD away. Now using a pointed tool, you can remove the tape holding down the camera connector, and then use your nylon spudger tool to unplug the cable. Then, use tweezers or a pointed tool to remove the tape from the headphone jack connector, and then use your nylon spudger tool to unplug the cable. Using your spudger tool, unplug the cellular antenna from the logic board. Remove the Phillips screw from the shield covering the power and volume cable, and also remove the Phillips screw from the lower part of the logic board. Next, remove the shield and unplug the power volume cable from the logic board. Now remove the screw from the cellular antenna and remove the tape from the shield covering the rear camera connector, and then remove the shield. Then unplug the cables that are located below that shield. Next, using your nylon spudger tool, unplug the Wi-Fi antennas from the bottom area of the logic board. Remove the Phillips screws from around the lightning port. There are two screws that are hidden under black plastic pieces. Use your tweezers to remove these pieces and then take the screws out. Now remove the tape holding down the Wi-Fi antenna cables. Next, you will need to remove the screws holding down the Wi-Fi antenna to the casing, and remove this portion of the Wi-Fi antenna. And then remove the screws holding down the other portion of the Wi-Fi antenna to the casing. Then remove both sets of Wi-Fi antennas together. Using a flat tool, carefully pry up the lightning flex cable from the back case. It's being held down with adhesive. Before you can remove the logic board, you will need to remove the SIM tray. After that is removed, you can now take out the logic board. Use your flat tool to help you pry out the speaker assemblies from the bottom. Remove the Phillips screw from the headphone assembly, and also the two screws located here. Now remove the tape holding all the cables together, and then remove the headphone assembly by carefully prying the cable away from the back case. Take out the screws from the cellular antenna assembly and remove it. Next, take out the screws from the other cellular antenna assembly and remove it. Separate the FaceTime camera from the back case. It's being held in place with adhesive. Then remove some more tape holding the cables together, and then remove the camera assembly by carefully sliding the cable out. Now pry the rear-facing camera out. To remove the power volume assembly, you will need to remove the tape covering the screws and then take the screws out. Then remove the screws that are located under the volume cable. Be careful when doing this, as the cable can be easily torn. The power button and lock slide button can easily come out and be removed. And finally, to remove the battery, you will need to heat up the back case to loosen the adhesive holding the battery down. Then use a thin flat tool to pry the battery out. Be careful in doing this to not puncture the battery.